next impacts all of us for the future. Right? The two people that we're about to bring on stage, they are the reason that we will continue to have a future, and also a reason why we have one of the best sci-fi action movies out there of all time. And this year, celebrating its 30th anniversary. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the two actors from Terminator. First up, you know him as Kyle Reese. The father, Mr. John Connor, Mr. Michael Biehn. Please give a round of applause. And now, Miss Sarah Connor, the lovely, the personable Linda Hamilton.
Boy, girl.
There you go. All right, guys. So this is how it's going to work. There is a microphone over here, and we want you to be asking questions. So we can actually dive right in, because there's a guy that looks like he's really got a question planned right there. I do kindly ask that you keep it to one question per person and make it nice and concise. And I can't wait to find out what this guy is about to ask. Please, sir, what is your question?
Tom.
Hi, Linda. So, the Empress of Sci-Fi and Michael Biehn. Alright. So, my question to the both of you, since you have given us such an amazing, amazing film with two fantastic characters, if there was one personality trait that both Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese had that you don't have in real life, but you would like to have in real life, what would that be? Start with the lady first, Linda.
I hated her taste in clothes. That tie-dye thing. That tie-dye thing has got to go. I was all right with the iguana. Let's see. I don't know. I think I lived it and ate it and breathed it, you know, except for the hair. Yeah, it was the hair. Basically, I'd have to go with the hair. It was terrible.
What about a personality that you would want to have of hers?
Good taste in guys. I've never had that.
Question?
A personality trait of Kyle Reese that you don't have in
Okay, for me it's like, I'm not like a fucking tough guy. Or, you know, I don't go around fighting people. I'd be like frightened, running the other direction if a Terminator was coming towards me. So I'm not like that in real life at all.
A lover,
another word
a lover, not a fighter.
A lover, not a fighter is exactly right.
So in other words, like your co-star Bill Paxton said to Aliens, game over, man, game over!
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And you too, Tom.
Yeah. Thanks, thanks for getting us off to a very interesting and a little bit weird start, but thank you, Tom.
Who said it was weird?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you? This question is for both of you, but all of us fans, we know how exciting it is for us coming to Comic-Con, but can you tell us what it's like for you guys?
I can. I love just getting out and meeting people. I mean, I'd be doing this at the mall, anywhere, just meeting people and talking to strangers. That's who I am. And like if you were my kids, you would just like hate being with me because I just stop and talk to anybody and get their whole life story and give them my address. And so I'd be doing this no matter where I was, but it's really nice to do it in New Orleans.
And I would say that, for me, it's really kind of exciting to be near fans, because, you know, when you're making movies, you're really never around them. And to see how excited you all are, and to see, you know, I have a lot of times I'll take pictures with girls, and they're actually shaking, you know, when I have my arm around them, and some guys too, actually, you know. And, you know, so it's really, for me, it's been a really great experience to be able to come out and just like, it seems to make everybody happy, you know, everybody's happy, and you know, it's easy for me to sit around and have people tell me how great I am, so, but, you know, I never realized how much enjoyment people really got from the films that we do. I just never understood the excitement, and I don't know if it's something that's happening lately with all these Comic-Cons, they're just blowing up, but it's been really exciting for me just to meet you guys and see the excitement and, you know, the fact that you know, appreciate the hard work that we both put in, because it really, something like the Terminator was hard work.
When did you first notice that the film actually had fans? Like, was more than just a movie that came out, that it actually had made an impact?
Well, the first movie, to my recollection, was actually a really, really slow burn, right? It was not an overnight hit at all. It took years and years for it to become a success, as I recall. We were ready to open it. I was flying to New York to do press, and I got word 2 days before we were scheduled to leave that nobody really wanted to talk to me, so only Arnold was going. Yeah, and I was like, oh shit. And it was years and years before, you know, people really started, you know, saying, hey, I saw you in this movie and loved it, and I want to cast you in this, and, you know, it took years for the blessing to really hit. And then it took off, and praise God for that.
You know, I agree 100%. I'll give you an example. In 1984, which was the year that we were released, we shot, it was a very low budget movie, $6.5 million. It made $40 million. So it was a success, you know. But just to give you an idea, there are a lot of movies that came out that year, but one, Karate Kid 2, made $90 million, okay? So it was not like this. Most people at that time didn't think Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, was worth watching or going to the movie theater to watch. And so Arnold wasn't really that big of a draw. And it, you know, I feel that it was in the early 80s, everybody started getting their, they weren't called, what were they called back then when you slide the tape into the VHS? VHS.
It's been so long we forget the technology today.
Yeah, the VHS. I feel like that movie really, most people saw it on VHS. And it was a long time really before, you know, anybody really kind of thought of that as they do now. I mean, it was really like, nobody was like offering me stuff, like, it wasn't like, oh, Michael Biehn's in this movie, Hamilton's in this movie, we got all, you know, they're gonna be stars, they're gonna be, no, nothing like that at all. So it was like the rest of my career, very slowly, like a turtle, cruising along.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I just had a question for both of you guys. Is there like any memories that stick out when you guys were filming the first movie? Like something you guys, like behind the scenes, something funny that might have happened, or?
There was absolutely no humor whatsoever. This is a Jim Cameron film. You know what? I had my question marks about this film, just as Michael was saying, because it was Arnold. I mean, you know, I can say that now because he's proven me wrong. And I'm always wrong, but, you know, I thought, I was a New York trained actress, and, you know, a young actress, so I took whatever, but my people were very excited about the film, and I was like, I don't know about this Arnold guy, you know? So it took a while for me to really sort of catch on to what we were doing, and for it to really feel like it might add up to something. We worked hard, we worked long. Michael and I did really sort of close ranks and work together to try to make the scenes come alive. Do you know what I mean? Just in every sense, it was just hard. It was nights, but I remember some pretty magical moments. And I will tell you that by the time we were shooting at the end of the film, we shot the whole stuff, all of the stuff in the restaurant. So we shot the beginning of the movie at the end of the movie. And I know that it took them 2.5 hours to cover the bruises on my body so that I could appear fresh-faced, young waitress. But it was 2.5 hours of covering the bruises because we had put that much into it. And it was like a big trust exercise. We did some amazing stuff, and I just have to say that, it was him. It was the trust and the stuff that we had to do, the stuff that never even appeared on screen. I will never forget the tuck in the roll that we had to do when you grabbed me as I tried to escape or something, and we do this roll, and Michael's strength and confidence, because basically I had to pitch myself in the air and trust that he was going to catch me and roll, and he took all the brunt of the fall. And I remember that as one of the finest acting moments of my life, because it was just so, this is not what they teach you at the Actors Studio in New York, how to just throw yourself in the air and trust that someone's going to catch you. And there were moments like that have never really been one-upped in my life.
How did that trust develop then? When did you first kind of meet each other? Was it right after you got the jobs? And how did you know that this was someone that you could really go on this journey with?
Nights and nights of acting and sort of building up to it. Trust doesn't happen right away. I don't even remember, Michael, did we audition together? I mean, that audition process went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Jim kept bringing me back and matching me with different actors, and I barely remember meeting Michael. Did we audition together?
I don't remember.
Yeah. At this point, we're just blind, waiting for is it going to be me or Jennifer Jason Leigh?
And it really didn't really seem that important at the time too, because I can remember my agent calling me up and say, I'm going to send you a script. It's called The Terminator. Why don't you take a look at it and go in and do an audition for this guy, James Cameron. And I said, who's James Cameron? And they said, well, he's worked a lot for Roger Corman. And that at the time was not that meant a very low budget, kind of sleazy, kind of grindhouse kind of movie. But he got fired off of that show. And I said, okay, well, who's producing it? And they said, well, Gail Hurd's producing it. Oh, Gail Hurd, who's she? Well, she works a lot down there with those guys too. And I thought to myself, all right, well, who's in the movie? Is there anybody cast? Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he can't even fucking speak English. And you gotta remember at the time, Arnold was not a superstar by any long stretch of the imagination. He was more of kind of people. And to his credit, like Linda said, he's gone on to prove me and everybody else in this country who didn't think that he could become a movie star, he became a movie star. And I give him all the credit in the world for that. And for who he is, well, recently I yeah, recently I had some second thoughts about that. But so anyway, so I said to my agent, okay, you want me to go audition for a movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger's in? Cool. Okay, well, what's it about? Well, it's about this man who comes down to Earth and tries to save a woman who's working at Bob's Big Boy from a robot that is sent from the future. It's like, oh my God, it's fucking terrible. So anyway, and I went in, I'm like Linda, I was young, and I needed the work, so I went in and auditioned and met Jim, and We had about 3 months together after we were cast, because Arnold had to run off and do Conan 2, which his option got picked up on. And during that time, we got to go down to, and I don't know if Linda, how much time we were spending together at that time, we got to go down to Stan Winston's studio. And Stan Winston is no longer with us, is the like 8 or 10-time, 12-time Academy Award-winning special effects guy. And it was at that point where I was hanging around with Jim a lot. We were going out and shooting, you know, automatic weapons, and he was showing me how to hot wire cars and taking me down to the studios and showing me how he was going to shoot stuff, and meeting Stan Winston and seeing the models and the pictures. And it was at that point that I started thinking, well, you know, there might be something to it. And how much does Arnold have to say? 4 words? Okay, all right, you know, we'll give it a try.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi there. I kind of have like a two-parter.
Keep it to one part though.
Okay. More for training for the 2 movies, because Linda was in both of them. What, did you guys get a lot of weapons training?
I didn't touch it. I've never touched it.
Did you guys get a lot of weapons training, just so you didn't feel, you know, ridiculous trying to handle automatic weapons or whatever? And also, what did you do for the second movie to get a smoking hot body?
I worked my ass off, literally.
Did you get any tips from Arnold by chance?
No, I actually wanted to surprise Arnold, or it wasn't even about that, but you know, like when I first saw Arnold when we were back, when we were doing our script reading, and we, you know, were seeing each other for the first time in 7 years, I was like, look, Arnold! I mean, I pretty much like took my clothes off to show him what, I was wearing a running bra or something, but, you know, to show him what I'd done, to show him my achievement, you know, in getting ready. And the first time around, for me, there wasn't a lot of training because as that character, you know, she doesn't really come up with the goods. You know, there wasn't a lot, I know that they originally had intended for me to take off on a motorcycle with Michael, a wounded Michael on the back, and they were giving me lessons on a 1250 or something, which was about twice as heavy as me. I mean, you never want to ride a motorcycle you can't pick up off the ground. It was so completely intimidating, and at some point they changed that, and like, I was free and clear. But, you know, so I didn't have to do the training that Michael did for the first one. And then the second time around, you know, I'm like the Michael Biehn, kind of come to save, or, you know, I mean, I just remember the scene with the psychiatrist going, I gotta out Michael in this scene. I gotta out Michael because he was so good in the first one. Sort of full circle.
Yeah. Just real quickly, yeah, what kind of training did you have to do, Michael?
I didn't really have to do any training, but Jim wanted me to kind of work out with some sort of karate guy or whatever, and I worked out with him in the park a little bit, and but I mean, the only thing that I really use in that movie, if I'm not mistaken, is that shotgun. Yeah. And I mean, that's just like every young boy's like wet dream, like, you know, that shot of him going in through the window. And that can be done, you know, pretty easily by anybody. And I just wanted to look cool doing it, you know. I didn't care if, you know, if it was the right way or the wrong way. So I didn't really train for that. The one thing that I do talk about sometimes is the fact that, like, as an actor, a lot of times you want to try to, you know, get inside of the head of the character you're playing. So if you're playing a cop, you go out and you hang out with cops, and you get an idea of kind of the way that they feel about things, and it helps your performance and makes you confident that you know how a cop is. And in this case, I didn't really have anybody I could go to because this is a guy from the future. And I remember thinking about in World War II, in Poland, when they were rounding up all the Jewish people in Warsaw, that there were a lot of guys that were fighting from underneath Warsaw. There was like underground fighters, and they would go from sewer to sewer to sewer to sewer, and it took the Germans a long time, like 6 weeks or whatever to really finally wipe them all out. And I read a book about that, and I kind of got into that space of like, it's not about, you know, anything other than survival. And that was my really, I think the most important contribution I made to myself was reading that book and getting into the mindset of what those people were going through at that time under like odds that were just impossible, and trying to stay alive and not thinking about much else.
That's very cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Why Johnny Ringo? I've been waiting forever to do that. Thank y'all so much for being here first. Linda and Michael, y'all very gracious. And I hope you haven't answered this question for me already. I don't think you have. I watch a lot of documentaries about the making of movies. I mean, like Star Wars. I mean, the actors had no idea. They thought it was going to be just a big mess. And Jaws was the same way. And I guess, and I'm kind of assuming that while y'all were making the Terminator, y'all probably had your doubts. Oh my God, is this going to be the next terrible sci-fi movie? You know, is this going to be Time Rider Part 2 or, you know, whatever? At what point did you really, I guess, between then and the producing and when the movie was actually released, did you really start to go, wow, this really is something. This is really something good, you know?
For me, it was only when I saw it.
First time at the screen?
When I saw it, and then I was like, oh my God, I forgive Jim Cameron for everything he ever did to me. Because, listen, I finished that movie and I was like, that director is on the side of the machines. He is not on the side of the human beings. And, you know, and then you see the movie and go, oh my God, I forgive him. He's a genius. It's so good. You know, it's amazing what after sight will give you. And it was really only when I saw the movie that I went, oh my God, this is just so much faster and better. And that's where, you know, Jim's skill is just like putting it together without one unnecessary part. You know, he's just so good at getting in there and keeping it going. And that was the first time I ever really believed in it, was when I saw it. That doesn't mean that I didn't work as hard as I always work when I do it, you know. You work your butt off no matter what, but you never know what the result is going to be.
Yeah, and I guess, like I said, I was a little bit, I came to the party a little bit earlier because I got to spend so much time with Jim that while Arnold was away for that 3-month period of time, and I got to spend so much time in the special effects room and listening to him talk and watching, looking at his storyboards and so on and so forth. So I got on board pretty quickly, and Cameron also is a guy that, you know, there used to be this stupid fucking thing that they used to talk to happen. They used to have something they called dailies, okay? Yeah. Which is they would shoot film, and then they would get it overnight. They would get it
processed,
developed overnight, and then the next day you would watch to make sure that you got everything you needed. They called that dailies. And for some reason, back when we were young, they didn't let actors go to dailies because actors were just so insecure that they were afraid that if they saw themselves on camera and didn't like it, they would change their performance. And they're fucking idiots. They were just idiots, you know? But that's the way it was. But with Jim, Jim was always like, come to dailies, come see dailies. Come watch, come watch, come watch, you know? And he was like insulted if you didn't go to dailies. He's like, why not? Why not? Come on. I want to show you that I got tech noir kind of cut together. Come watch that, you know? And so I got to watch that movie being put together. And I got to see it being put together by a real master. And you know, Jim at that time in his life, I think he was like a kid in a candy store. He was having a lot of fun too. I think towards the middle of that, I think we were all having a lot of fun, really. I can't think of a movie I've had. Well, Tombstone was pretty fun too.
Well, I was gonna say before I left, thank y'all. I was gonna say, loved you in Tombstone, and Linda, I loved you in Mr. Destiny.
Oh
yes.
Thank you.
Was he a fairly confident director then? Like, was that exuding confidence while he was on set, or was he still sort of an insecure, you know, newbie at it?
No, he's confident.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
What she
Yes, sir.
My question is, what do you think about, my question, there's two sides. What do you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies and Brandon Lee's movies?
No particular opinion. I don't really know Brandon Lee.
He was Bruce Lee's kid.
I know. Who died with the bullet? Yeah.
Tragically, yeah.
The Crow.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arnold, no comment. I mean, you know, he's had some great ones and some that aren't so great. I loved him in True Lies, by the way. I thought he was kind of perfect in that film. There are other times where he's not as perfect, but, you know, there are a lot of mine that aren't so good either, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think that, you know, Arnold was really smart after the Terminator. He went out and did, hooked up with another great director, Verhoeven, and did Predator. Okay, so, I mean, that's a smart guy who's got a smart agent. And then he went and he did Twins, you know, and that kind of solidified him as a movie star, where he was getting like $20 million, you know, a movie for a guy, you know, that, you know, you could hardly understand. You know, so he was very, very smart, and I actually just saw a movie. I mean, it's crazy to see De Niro. Never in my lifetime when I saw Taxi Driver was a movie that made me go like, you know what? This is serious. I could be like a serious actor. Before that I was thinking, oh, I could be, you know, doing commercials, maybe getting on a television series. I was like, when I saw Taxi Driver, I was like, fuck, man, this guy is cool. This is who I want to be. And now to see him and, what's his name?
Stallone.
What? Stallone, yeah, Stallone in the movie together was crazy. But I saw him in a movie with Stallone where they're in prison and so on and so forth. And like, Arnold was really, really good in it. He was really good. He got to speak Austrian finally. You know? And I thought he was really good in it. I thought it was one of his better performances in like True Lies and so on and so forth. I think he's more of kind of like the John Wayne type of actor, you know? And I think that, you know, some people are like John Wayne, some people are like Meryl Streep, you know? And nobody's better or bigger or whatever, but he certainly is a presence that is undeniable. On film and off. Off camera too, he's bigger than life.
Right.
And people always say to me, like, what's it like to work with him? And the answer was, I don't know, I never worked with him. You know, because the only time that you ever see Arnold and I believe, in the whole movie, in the same frame, is when we're in the car together, and he's jumping through the window and he pushes his hand through the window. The rest of the time, we worked at Tech Noir together, but we're never in the same shot. And we worked the day where we were running from him, from Tech Noir. Might even been the same day. Other than that, never worked with him. It was always me and Linda working, and then Arnold working. And then it was always me and Linda working, and then Arnold working. So I never worked with the guy. So, but he was fun, and what you would think, gregarious, and, you know, practical jokes, and, you know, grabbing ass, and, you know.
Thank you, sir. Hi there.
Hello. So the question is really for Linda, but
Even mine.
Thank you so very much for being here, and I've been a fan of the films since way, way back. But Linda, I really consider you and Sigourney Weaver to be the true pioneeresses of these strong central female characters in action films that has very little to do with the sex and everything else that was going on in the late 70s and the 80s, and I just wanted to know how you felt about I guess, your mark, your legacy, and where you think that these strong central female characters are going.
Yeah, you know, it's something that people assign to me long after the fact, right? It's not like you're there in the moment and everybody's like, you are the next it girl, you know, I mean, never was that my intention or my goal. As a matter of fact, I was really surprised by the amount of attention. Certainly the body part of what I did to get ready for that film, do you know what I mean? None of it was anticipated, so you know, I take it gladly. I can't make the same claim, but enough other people have made it for me that I'm grateful. I don't really know. I think that probably one factor that had something to do with me turned me into that character. I mean, turned me into the icon of the strong woman, which is that Jimbo wanted me to cut my hair off at the when I get out of the mental hospital, because a fighter can't have anything that somebody can grab. So he wanted me to take scissors and cut my hair off, and it wasn't a vanity or anything of mine, but I just thought, I don't think we have to do that. How about if I tie it back? But I really think that if I had chopped my hair off, then there wouldn't have been that element of femininity, and it was the combination of being strong and capable and feminine that put that over the top, because I think a lot of people would have just gone, ugh, with this butch or whatever titles people will give you. I think that probably made a huge difference as to whether or not the public was going to embrace that character or not. So I'm glad I didn't cut my hair. One little thing.
And we only have time for probably 2 more questions. So, sir, it's up to you.
This should be a quick one. Obviously loved the Terminator and some of your newer work like Chuck for Linda. Do you have any upcoming projects you're allowed to talk about?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. It's a little late in the game to not talk about it though. I'm doing a show called Defiance on Sci-Fi. I love that show. I love the show. So season 2 starts in June, and I come on towards the end, and I'm the big cliffhanger, so I know I get at least one more in season 3 if it gets picked up. And I love it. I just love it. It's just right up my alley. I don't want to play the forensic psychologists or cops or professional women. I just want to play the crazy out there characters. I don't know. On some level, I really am a character actress, and this show is just perfect for me. Mentally ill. That's all I'm saying.
Michael, anything that you can talk about?
I have a couple of movies that are pay-per-view movies that I'm very proud of. One is called The Divide. It was made by a French director named Xavier Gens, which I think is just a brilliant ensemble of actors. It's about 7 or 8 people that are stuck in a bunker after a nuclear. You taught me that.
Nobody says nuclear in our family.
When I was doing the Terminator, and I think I still say nuclear. She kept saying it's nuclear, and I'm like nuclear. She knew it, and but anyway, and we're stuck in there, and there's women and men and children, and things start getting really hairy, and we start getting sick because of the radiation, and it's a little bit, people start taking sides, and it becomes very violent and sexual, and it's a really dark movie, but I'm very proud of the work that we did in it. And another time when we have more time, I would explain the process in which we did it, which was a lot of improving and writing our own characters and so on and so forth. And then there was a movie I did with Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino called Grindhouse. What happened was that after we made that movie, which was disappointing from a box office standpoint because nobody could quite understand what they were trying to do, I decided that I was going to go make my own Grindhouse movie. So I wrote a script in 2 weeks, and during that 2-week period of time, I did all the pre-production, which is casting, getting all the vehicles, dealing with the Screen Actors Guild, just finding locations, doing that. And you're really supposed to do that like way ahead of time, but we did it without a script. And then we rolled into, after those 2 weeks, I wrote the script, and everybody just followed me around. I said, we're gonna need this, we're gonna need that, we're gonna need this, we're gonna need that. We rolled into a 12-day shoot, 12 days. Terminator was 12 weeks. And so I made this movie in 12 days, and I'm very proud of it. It's called The Victim, and you can pick that up on DVD. It's like a total exploitation movie. Where's Jennifer? Okay, she's back here. She's my wife.
You can't see her though.
She's the producer of...
There's Jennifer!
Really put that movie together and has put together all the movies that we've done since. We're now doing movies with, we just did one with Angus McFadden and John Wortes from, what's the show called? From what? From Castle. And so we're doing these kind of low-budget movies when we're working for ourselves now. The Victim was very, very successful. It got picked up by Anchor Bay. And so, you know, we figure like we make them really cheap and they don't have to make so much money. So I'm very, very, very proud of The Victim, and we've got like 3 or 4 movies in the can at different states of like, you know, release. And so that's what we've been doing, is making our own movies very cheaply.
And Michael, what was the name of the first title, the nuclear one?
That's called The Divide.
The Divide?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a very, very dark movie. It's a little like Requiem for a Dream, you know? You kind of walked out going like, ugh.
Cool.
You know? But I think it's got like the best ensemble cast I've ever worked with. You know, some great performances in it. And we got to improv stuff and change things and write our own characters. And it's a very interesting movie.
Very cool. Thank you.
By the way, that doesn't always work when you get to kind of work your own characters. I did a film a long time ago, I won't name it, Shadow Conspiracy, where it was about the Cold War. And of course, we're shooting it and there's no more Cold War. And the whole thing is about, you know, an assassination attempt on the president, whatever, and a journalist, and whatever. It was so bad, but they kept rewriting it because there was no more Cold War. So eventually, all of these rewrites add up to absolutely no story, and none of the characters are at all sort of fleshed out, and it doesn't, you know, one character is doing this and another one anyway. The best line is that Donald Sutherland, when we're all sitting there and they bring us rewrites for the day, and we're all sitting there going through our parts and trying to figure out what our part means in the context of this movie that no longer makes sense to any of us. And Donald Sutherland looks at his scenes for that day and he goes, "I'm sorry, but I cannot act and throw up at the same time." So it doesn't always work for the best when I really like that line.
I think I'll steal that. And final question, sir.
Yes, I was reading an early draft of the script for the Terminator recently, and there were some scenes I didn't quite make it to filming. The ones I did, I was amazed at the dialogue, how it's exactly the same in the film. And I was wondering, was that more James Cameron directing y'all to do that, or do you prefer like sticking to the script, or do y'all prefer like ad-libbing? Was there any ad-libbing?
Jim is actually pretty relaxed about his dialogue, don't you think, Michael?
Yes.
I mean,
go ahead.
if you show up, and Michael and I actually did spend a lot of time kind of working stuff in our dressing room, our separate dressing rooms. You know, and if you show up on the set and you make something work, Jim's gonna say, okay. So, you know, it's a combination of, you know, you take what works, and what isn't working for you as actors, if you just shift it a little bit, or add this line, or subtract that line. That was my experience with him.
Yeah, and Jim is one of the only directors that I know of that has only ever written every movie that he's ever done. And the idea that he went from doing Titanic, which made more money than any other movie in the history of films, and he waited 10 years to make another movie, and in the meantime, other films, came along and beat that. And then comes out with Avatar 10 years later, after all these other films have beaten his Titanic record, and then makes Avatar, makes more money than any other movie, is just like amazing. But with Jim, since we were with him early, Jim to me is like, people always talk about how tough he is and how mean he is and how rough he is and stuff, and I never found him that way at all, because he was like my friend. And the worst thing that Jim ever said was after a take, he said, "That's exactly how I don't want it." And I said, "All right, Jim, well, how do you fucking want it? You can do everything else on the set. You can, you know the cameras better, you know the lighting better, you know the wardrobe better, you put on the blood better, but you can't fucking act, can you?" And actors, they don't like line readings, do it like this, "Come with me if you want to live." I said, do a line reading, tell me what you want, And so I found him to be very open to subtle changes, and basically I have changed his dialogue with his permission, and Jim is so confident. If you have a director who's not confident, they're the ones who don't want you to change anything. But if you have a director who's really confident and can see that the suggestions that you're making for his film are going to make it better, and it's not about you, it's about making the film better, he'll go with it. And to give you an example, just of it wasn't a big dialogue change, although we did change some dialogue here and there. Not much, but here and there, and you just read the script. But when I'm sitting in the room and they're questioning me, that was my idea, because I said to Jim, I would know. That whole thing was supposed to be played to that psychiatrist. And I said, this guy would be so smart, he would know that this guy was not in charge, that somebody else, and that camera up there. So it was my idea to quit talking to that guy and start talking to the camera, and then run up towards the camera, and they pulled me off, which was a very kind of, visceral, kind of exciting, powerful moment. And that's Jim Cameron going, yeah, that is a good idea, let's go with that. Instead of some other director who's insecure going, no, just play it the way it is on paper, and I don't want to get in trouble from the studio. So all this BS about Jim, I've never heard him raise his voice on a set. And he can be, he doesn't suffer fools well.
Nothing.
I wasn't married to him, so.
On that note, Michael and Linda are heading back downstairs to do autographs, and if you stay in this room, there will be a screening of Terminator, and you can see what we've been talking about. But please show your thanks. Nice warm round of applause. Michael Biehn, Linda Hamilton. Head on downstairs and say hi.
Oh yeah, Mike's great.